So my name's Sam Crowley-Call. I work in student financial services, and I'm going to talk about the Perkins loan and institutional loans. The reason that it's a different presentation is because although the Perkins loan is a federal loan program, it has different rules from the direct, subsidized, unsubsidized, and plus loans. And we've modeled our institutional loans to follow the Perkins loan rules. So I'll talk about those and give you information about the servicer, who is UAS, so University Accounting Services. So if you have a Perkins loan or an institutional loan, you will be getting contacted by UAS saying, hey, you've graduated and you have this loan. Now, they shouldn't be strangers. You should have, when you first took out your loan, gone and filled out your master promissory note on their website. So there is a connection. You did have to enter in information about yourself to log in the first time, and if you've logged in multiple times, then you've obviously had to update information. So University Accounting Services, what happens is we, or in this case the registrar's office, sends the information to the National Student Clearinghouse. This is where all the servicers, not just UAS, but also the federal servicers, get their information about whether you're in school or not. Okay, so we report your enrollment information. In this case, you've graduated. We'll report that to the National Clearinghouse. Your servicers will look at that and say, oh, this student graduated. So that's what kicks off the process of contacting you, letting you know about your grace period, when you're going to start payments, all that information. Okay, now this session is good for the federal loan exit counseling, but for UAS, for the Perkins loan and for any institutional loans you might have taken out, you do need to do an online exit counseling. That's on their website. If you don't do it online, they send you a paper packet to the mailing address they have on file. Okay. But that will have specific information to your situation. Your Perkins loan or institutional loan, it'll have that specific information. And you'll be able to set up payments during that exit interview. Once you complete it, it'll take you, and you can set up, your automatic payments monthly from your bank account. And then if you have any questions, talk to UAS. Okay, we work very closely with them. So if you have a question after you've graduated and you say, hey, this is my situation. If they can't answer it or they aren't sure exactly what we want them to do, they'll actually contact us. So they'll contact myself or another person in our office and say, hey, this is the student's situation. What would you like us to do? Because there's more leeway, especially with our institutional loans, to be able to help you out. So we work very closely with them. So if you do have questions about a Perkins or institutional loan, contact them as soon as possible so that we can help you out. Okay? So again, the exit interview is going to be the same as if you were to do one for the federal loans. It's going to have your rights and responsibilities as a borrower, because you do have rights and you have responsibilities, both of those. So it's not just you have to pay the loan and that's all that you have to do. There are other things you do have to do. There are things that you need to expect others to do, whether it's your servicer or the Department of Ed. So the exit interview will outline those items. It'll give you the repayment information. It'll give you your options for the different repayments. The Perkins loan will have the same repayment options that the other federal loans do, okay? And institutional loans are a little more forgiving. They'll be able to work with you to figure out repayment plans, okay? Leave of absence. If you're graduating, this doesn't quite apply to you. If you're leaving the school and coming back, then it kind of does. So a leave of absence when you leave school and then come back at a later date to complete your program, what happens is that your grace period begins immediately because you have left school. You're no longer enrolled full-time or in this case, more than half time is the language that it actually says. So in that case, you're not considered enrolled, and your grace period starts immediately. Now, if you come back within the grace period time frame, which for Perkins loan is 9 months, then your grace period gets restored. So we say, okay, you took a break, but you came back, 6 months later. When you graduate, when you actually leave school, you still get the full grace period, okay? If you come back after that grace period, let's say you have an issue and you're out of school for a year, okay? Then when you come back, you don't get the full 9-month grace period, you get a 6-month grace period. It's just a little quirk, but you still do get a grace period. It's not that you've used it up and you no longer have it for Perkins, okay? Now, if you plan to go to a different school after you leave Stanford, whether that's a graduate program or some other program at a different school or at Stanford, you can submit an in-school deferment form. Now, this is not automatic, okay? Even though the school, wherever you go, may report that you're enrolled, it won't automatically defer your loans. So if you're going back to school, make sure you fill out the form and submit it to UAS. If you have other loans, your direct loans, make sure you also submit the form if it's necessary to those servicers so that you can get an in-school deferment for that. Because it's not always automatic. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It depends on the servicer, it depends on the school, and so you don't want to be in a situation where you're back in school, you think your loans are deferred, and all of a sudden you get a bill saying, hey, you're a month overdue, why haven't you paid it? So again, make sure you're on top of that deferment form. If you need enrollment information, you can look in Access to see what your enrollment was here. And again, the schools look at that National Clearinghouse. I believe if you go to NSLDS, the National Student Loan Data System, you can see your enrollment history as well. So I talked about deferments. Again, it's one form per loan. So if you have a Perkins loan and you have an unsubsidized loan, you need to do a form for each loan, okay? It's not one blanket form that covers everything, okay? And you have to do it annually. So you can't say, oh, I'm back in school and I'm doing a 2-year program, so defer my loans for 2 years. No, they always look at it on an annual basis. So each year you need to say, oh yes, I am still in school, I'm submitting the form, I still qualify for this deferment, okay? So Perkins is one of those loans that does have cancellation options. Instead of forgiveness with Perkins loan, they call it cancellation. So there is teaching. So there's the teacher loan cancellation for Perkins, very similar to the teacher loan forgiveness for the direct loans. Now you can use time teaching to qualify for both programs. So if you have a direct loan and you have a Perkins loan and you start teaching, you can count those years of teaching for the teacher loan forgiveness and for the teacher loan cancellation, okay? You just can't use 2 different forgiveness programs on the same loan. So you can't use public service loan forgiveness and teacher loan forgiveness to qualify for, to forgive just one, say, direct loan, okay? There are a couple public service loan forgiveness for Perkins. They follow the same guidelines as the direct loan. Again, if you're going to do this, you need to submit the forms because nobody's going to know if you don't tell them. So submit the forms to UAS, call them, say, hey, I'm working as a teacher now, or I'm working, at a nonprofit and I want to qualify for Perkins loan cancellation. What do I have to do? They'll say, you submit this form, you have it signed by these people, and you submit this supporting documentation, okay? They'll walk you through the process. Does anybody have an Avery loan? Was anybody teaching? Okay, we can skip the Avery loan. That's a special Graduate School of Education program. Now, for the teacher loan cancellation for Perkins, they do it by percentage. okay? So if you're teaching, each year you submit the form that says, I taught for this year, okay? You submit it, and then they cancel a percentage of your loan. So in year one, after you finish year one teaching, they cancel 15%. After year two, another 15%. Years 3 and 4, 20 and 20, and then they cancel the final 30% after year 5, okay? So you can get deferments for, if you're teaching for your Perkins loan, you can get a deferment so you don't have to make payments while you're teaching and then have it canceled at the end of that year. So this is a cycle. So you submit an application for deferment, okay? You submit it to UAS. They say, okay, your payments are deferred for 12 months, okay? Then you send, at the end of the school year, you send them the form saying, hey, I completed my year of teaching, okay? You're gonna have to have your principal or vice principal sign off on it, and you send it to UAS. When they get that form, okay, they cancel that portion of the loan, okay? If you don't submit the deferment form, you can still submit the cancellation form at the end of the year. They'll just have expected you to make payments during that year, okay? So you can make payments during the year and then cancel a percentage at the end of the year, that's fine. Or you can defer during the year and cancel at the end of the year, okay? So for Perkins, uaservice.com, the forms are gonna be there, okay? They have a list of all the forms that you may need. So if there's something that I haven't talked about or you don't remember when you're on there, they do have a list of forms, and you can always call them or email them, and they'll let you know what you need to do, okay? Default, it's the same thing as the direct loans, what Brandon talked about, okay? Default is not good, and there are all sorts of bad things that happen. Negative credit history, you can get denied for a loan, higher interest rate on a loan. So what happens is this accelerate a loan means basically that instead of saying, okay, you can make payments, when it gets accelerated, it says, oh, you owe the entire thing right now. So no more monthly payments, you just have to pay the whole thing back right now, okay? Stanford does refer these loans to a collection agency if you go into default. So you don't want to deal with the collection agency. Everybody has horror story. Everybody who's dealt with them has horror stories about it. We do keep them on a tight leash to make sure that they do treat our students with respect. So we do listen to phone calls that they have with students when they're trying to collect to make sure that they're still treating people with respect. But what they are out there to do is collect the money, okay? So don't go into default. It's as simple as that. That's the easiest way to avoid all these bad things is have communication with the servicer, with UAS, and if you have questions, ask somebody, whether it's UAS, whether it's the financial aid office, whether it's student financials, whether it's filing a Help SU ticket, whatever it is, if you have a question, the best thing to do is ask, okay? If you do get into default, there are ways to get out of it and to get it off your credit report. One is rehabilitation, okay, which is set up through the through UAS in this case, and you have to make 9 months of on-time payments. If you make 9 months of on-time payments, they say, okay, you're rehabilitated, your loan is back in good standing, we'll take it off your credit report, okay? Yes?
So if you paid off all on time, does that boost your credit score?
Yes. Yep. So that's positive credit history. So it'll have a time since when you took out the loan, and it'll have a history of on-time payments and then paid in full. So
if you pay it back early, does that not boost your credit score over time as much as it would if you paid it back?
The difference is negligible, unless you pay it off all at once, right at the beginning. The difference is just the history and how the history gets weighed. If this is your only credit on your credit report, then yeah, it'll have an outsized impact because there's nothing else that on your credit history. But if you have other things, if you have a credit card or if you have other loans, then the difference between paying it off, say 2 years in and paying it off, 8 years in or 10 years is not going to be as big. Yes.
So what happens if you go into, for example, unemployment deferment or you default, and then you go to another country, maybe because you were only here to get your degree, or you're a permanent resident, but you want to go back to your home country? What happens?
So in that case, what happens is if it's with a collections company, with a collections agency, they'll keep trying to collect. The Perkins loan goes back to the Department of Ed, and they have a collection agency that they use. What typically happens is that Stanford will put a hold on your account that says this student has an outstanding debt, and that will prevent you from getting transcripts or replacement diplomas. And so what we usually see coming through our office is students who need transcripts or are asking for a diploma who owe, who have defaulted. Then that's when it's okay. We can get them back on a payment plan. We can help them, but that's typically what will happen for those students. And if a student leaves the country, we're not obviously going to try and follow them to a different country, but the collections agencies will still try and contact, will still try and collect. It's really within the U.S.
Does it affect their credit score or their ability to get financial aid in other countries?
No, well, it affects their credit score. So if something, it'll be on the credit report for 7 years. If somebody's in another country and they want to use that credit report, then it'll show up, but it won't prevent financial aid or other aid in other countries. The default is sort of limited to the U.S. because those are that's the country that uses those rules. So if another country decides they want to abide by those rules and say, okay, a default in the U.S. means this for us, then they can do that. But typically, it's not, a default here is not applicable to a situation in another country. Okay. Mind over money. So Stanford has an in-house financial literacy program, and it's just getting off the ground now, but Mind Over Money is the web tool that's on. So if you go to sfs.stanford.edu, we have a link to Mind Over Money. It has tools, it has information, there are events both on and off campus for students, for alums, and it's anything from, how does credit work to, retirement accounts to taxes, what have you. If you have, the website is down here in the corner, mindovermoney.stanford.edu. So if you do have questions about, random kind of financial things and you go, I have no idea who to talk to about this, check out Mind Over Money. It is a tool, and give us your feedback because we are trying to improve it, so we can use any feedback you want to give. And then a couple to-dos, as if you didn't have enough already. Make sure your contact info is updated, both in Access and in UAS, and with your servicer for your direct loans. Because, I didn't update my information and so I didn't get the letters, emails, phone calls, is not a legitimate excuse when it comes to why you haven't paid. They kind of laugh you out of the room. So make sure your contact info is updated. Make sure you do your online exit interview with UAS. Check the accuracy of your loan records, okay? Just check whether it's on NSLDS or studentloans.gov. Check to make sure, hey, this is what I thought I have, this is what I have, okay? So that those two match up, so that you're not surprised, or something that you thought you got, you didn't get, or something that you didn't think you got, you got. So just make sure that you know what it is that you have, okay? Again, report future enrollment, whether it's at Stanford or elsewhere, via form. Don't expect it to happen automatically, and then follow up until your loan is paid in full, okay? There's nothing like getting a paid in full letter from a servicer saying, congratulations, your loan is paid in full, okay? It's nice, plus you don't have that monthly expense anymore. So this is the contact information for UAS, okay? If you have questions that UAS can't answer, you don't feel comfortable asking UAS, file a help ticket, help@su.stanford.edu, put in the Student Services Center in there, and it'll get routed to us. So if you do have questions, whether it's later today, tomorrow, 2 years from now, go ahead and ask. Yes?
So does everybody have to complete the exit survey for UAS, or is it only some?
Only if you have a Perkins or institutional loan. So you'll get a notification that you need to complete it online from UAS. But if you want to do it now, you can. But you will be getting an email if you have a Perkins or an institutional loan. Anything else? Okay.
Thanks again, everybody, for coming. Sam and Brandon are here to answer questions individually. Also, Darren Nickfer is from Student Financial Services is back there as well. Thanks, everybody, for coming, and congratulations on graduating.